Today we're going to draw this fun bubble together in Procreate. Hey, welcome back! Today we're going to draw this fun bubble artwork together in Procreate. It may look hard, but it's actually a very simple process that you can follow to get this cool bubble effect. I've created a document that's the size of my screen, but you can make your canvas whatever size you wish. Just make sure you're working at least 300 dots per inch. Today I'll be using this color palette called Cute Animals. These bright colors will work perfectly for our bubble. This palette and others are available over on my website. Go to dianamcdermott.com/freebies. If you join my free Doodle Squad, you'll have access to even more fun freebies in the Doodle Squad library. I've set my background color to black. In layer number 1, I'm going to make a circle. To make a circle quickly and easily, I'm going to go to my select tool and then click ellipse and then color fill. And right now my color swatch is white. I'll just drag across the screen until I get a bubble that's the size I like, and then let go and it'll automatically fill with white. Deselect, and this will be the shade that we're going to use for our bubble. I don't want to actually color on this shape. I want to make new layers on the top of the shape and use this circle as a template for my bubble colors. Because this is filled bright white, I don't really want it to be part of my final art, so I don't want to make my colors on top and use clipping masks in this case. But what I'll do instead is use this almost like a stencil to pour in my other colors. So what I'd like to do is tap on my layer here, press select, and that's going to select my white circle. I still have color fill turned on, so I want to turn that off, and now it's just going to select this area here. It's hard to see on the camera, but there are diagonal lines here showing me that the area that's selected is the circle. If you turn off your background color, then you can see how this is shaded in, and this area here has been selected. I'm going to work in layer number 2, but first I want to turn off this white circle, and now I'm left with this nice stencil that I can color in. I'll turn my background color back on, and I have white selected, and I'll use this textured paint brush, but you can use any brush you wish. It doesn't really make a huge difference because we're going to be blurring things out. So the textured paintbrush is available in the Doodle Squad library as well, and it's just a really fun brush to work with, and it layers on really nice. So my first layer here, I'm just going to make a white circle, and you don't have to make it a perfect circle. That was kind of like a happy accident where it snapped to a perfect circle. It can be messy, it doesn't need to be perfect. And I'll go ahead and make another layer and grab another color like this pink. I'm just going to paint in some like random areas here. It doesn't have to be anything like super planned out or perfect. Now this is still staying in my stencil that I've created because you can see I have not deselected. So it's all coloring in this perfect circle that I've already made using my white circle as a template. So I'll make another layer on top and maybe grab this like bluish green color and add a little bit of this in, and one more layer, and let's go with this like bright green. You might as well add this purple, so I'll do that in layer 6. Okay, so we have a lot going on here. I am going to keep this selected and go ahead and blur out each of these layers. So I'll tap on the adjustments menu, press Gaussian blur, and you can see both of these are blue, so you want to make sure you're still selected so that your blur doesn't pour out beyond that circle stencil that you made. And I'll just blur that a little bit, and I kind of need to see my black background to see how much of each color and how much blur I want. So I'll go through and do that for each of these layers. You may need to go back in and adjust some of them, like that green was way too intense, and you'll be able to see that as you blur out your layers and you have a dark background. turned on, then you can easily see where you need to blur a little bit more. So that's pretty good. And then I would like to adjust the opacity so these aren't so heavy here. So I'll just tap on my pink layer, and then you can tap on the N. That's where you can change your blend modes. It's on normal right now. You can also adjust your opacity there. So I'm going to take this down quite a bit because bubbles are pretty transparent with just like that hint of color. I don't want it to be so much. And so just go through each one and you can adjust it to your liking. It's really fun to play around with these and see the way the look of your bubble can change based on how much color you add and how much you blur it and everything. And everybody's is going to look unique and different. But it needs some highlights. So I'll go up to the next layer and grab white, and I'll stick with that textured paintbrush and just add in a little bit of these like brighter highlights. You could also use the airbrush that's included in the Procreate app, and that would work well for this too. So I'm just going to kind of add like little dots and things here and there, and this looks really crazy. You can see you don't want it to look all textured like that. If you want it to be like a smooth bubble, kind of depends on the look you're going for, but you can blur it out as you go. So don't worry if it's looking a little crazy. You can always come in here and blur it as much as you need to. And if there's some areas that aren't looking so good, like I don't really like this part here, just go in and erase them. It's fine. And then you can always blur it out a little bit again, or use the smudge tool here. So I think that looks much better. And I'll add one more layer and just do a few more of those little highlights. Just put a few like bright highlights in, and then go up here to the Gaussian blur and blur it out one more time here. Okay, when you're happy with it, then you can deselect, and that will release your stencil, which was that white circle, and I think that looks pretty good. This is a really fun technique to play around with. You can make all kinds of different bubbles. Once you have your bubble completed, you could group it up into a folder, and then you could duplicate your folder and flatten it down. And then you could make like bubbles all over your paper, which could be really cute for like a fun card. So you could just kind of like swivel them and resize them and just fill in the whole page with all of these fun little bubbles. And you can see how it'll come out kind of differently each time depending on the color intensity you have used and the shines. And it could be really fun to make a whole bunch of these, and then you have all of these fun bubbles to work with where you can layer them all on to a paper, and then they would all look unique rather than duplicating the same bubble lots of times. So I have a bonus tutorial here for you. I wanted to show you how you can recolor some of these pretty easily without having to draw more than one if you didn't want to do that. So if you tap on the one you would like to recolor and you go up here to the adjustments menu, you can work with all of these different items here, like the hue, saturation, brightness. You could do gradient map, curves, and you can really play around with how your bubble will look depending on how you adjust these settings. So let's look at hue, saturation, and brightness. You could just move the hue left or right, and it instantly changes your bubble to the different colors than the original one. And that could be a really fun way to add some variation onto your page if you wanted to put a bunch of these bubbles on a page. Let's look at this third one here. So I'll select it, and then I'll go up here to curves, and this is a really fun tool to play around with as well. You can adjust your curves just by dragging on your line here. You can also add additional nodes. So if you tap your pencil along the curve, then you have this extra node to work with where you can drag it up and down. You could go through the different red, green, and blue and play around with that, and just keep messing around with it until you get the look that you're going for. And you can see how you could quickly get a lot of variety in your bubbles if you go through and play with these tools here that are at your disposal with Procreate. It's a really fun way to change the look of something without having to draw it a whole bunch of times. I hope this tutorial was fun for you. I'd love to see what you created. If you're on Instagram, you can tag me at MyMcDoodles so I can see your fun bubbles. Don't forget to subscribe before you go so you don't miss out on the next fun tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.